Es ist Zeit bereit.
Hello, Dutchies, and welcome back to another episode of your PA Dutch Minute. I recently was engaged in some conversation online on social media that has prompted me to create this video. A lot of times my inspiration for videos comes from interactions that I have with people on our various pages, whether it's our PA Dutch 101 page on Facebook, or if I see something on Instagram or on Twitter. So this is absolutely another one of those videos inspired by some things that I saw and figured maybe we should try and tackle this question a little bit. So, and I do get asked this from time to time, and I think there are people that truly are wondering, especially those of you out there that are studying the Pennsylvania Dutch language and trying to learn Pennsylvania Dutch, and it often elicits this question: how do I write and spell in Pennsylvania Dutch? Is there an official spelling system? Is there certain rules? What do I do? It's a great question, and the problem is that that some of us already know is that it can be tricky. It can be tricky, and there is no official orthography or spelling system for Pennsylvania Dutch. There's no governing body of our language. If you look at other languages around the world, like French is a great example, they have a governing body that oversees and protects the French language. So as new words are created, there's an agreed spelling. Certain words are pushed over other words to maintain the Frenchness of the language. And there are other languages and countries around the world that have organizations similar to that, like what they do in France and for the French language. But in Pennsylvania Dutch, there is no group. There's no official, Academy of Pennsylvania Dutch that oversees the Pennsylvania Dutch language. And the other thing that we're dealing with is the fact that for a large portion of our history, Pennsylvania Dutch was purely a spoken language, and not every Pennsylvania Dutch speaker was writing in the language. A lot of our relatives, in the years past, when they were educated, of course, they were educated in English. So Pennsylvania Dutch, even though for many of them it was their first language, they grew up speaking it, hearing it at home from their parents and grandparents. But when they went to school, of course, everything was in English, and that was the language that they were taught to read and write in. My grandparents, all four, are a great example. All four of them were, they grew up first language Pennsylvania Dutch, were educated one room schoolhouse in the 1920s and 30s in English, could read and write perfectly well in English. But if I would give them a poem in Pennsylvania Dutch to read out loud, they would really struggle. They would have struggled to do it. In fact, my grandmother, I tried one time, my one grandmother, and she goes, I can't read Pennsylvania Dutch. Don't even give it to me to read, even though this was her language that she could speak fluently. So we have to remember that for a large portion of our history, the majority of our speakers were not reading or writing in Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, there were people that were, though. We have to remember that. And I'm going to show you some examples today. But to make this as easy as possible, I often tell people there's two types of written Pennsylvania Dutch. But again, there's no right or wrong. There's the one that is German based, and there's one that's English based. And what I mean by that is the German based is using German based spelling systems. So if you hear an SH sound in a word, it's written SCH, because that is how German is done. And remembering that Pennsylvania Dutch is a Germanic based language. But then there were people that wrote Pennsylvania Dutch as English, people that could read and write in English. They knew what Pennsylvania Dutch sounded like. It was their language, and they would write out Pennsylvania Dutch how it sounded to them using English-based spellings for sounds. And I'll show you some examples of those. So those are the two different types. And really, I find that people either are really comfortable with one or really comfortable with the other. And that's fine. It doesn't matter. And we'll talk more about that as well as we move along. But I want to show you some examples of these systems. I'm going to start with the German-based. And again, there's not just one German-based system of spelling either. There's multiple versions of words using the German-style spelling system. So here's just one. This is from a very famous book called Harbaugh's Harfe, which was written by Henry Harbaugh in the year 1870, considered one of the very first true collections of Pennsylvania Dutch writing. And from the very first poem in that book, The Old Schoolhouse on the Creek, or At the Creek, here's just an example of the style of spelling that Henry Harbaugh used. Das Alt Schulhaus an der Creek Heit ist exactly 20 Jahre, dass ich bin obernas, na bin ich wieder lebendig zurück. If you are someone that is watching this video that can read German or can read German-based Pennsylvania Dutch, you probably have very little difficulty reading this. But there's some unique things going on here, and we're not going to get into all all the language stuff going on here. But here's an example of the word exactly. So Harbaugh uses the English word, but spells it Germanically, exactly, right? So, and that's just you have to get used to reading some of this stuff because there's no standard. So this is just one example of a German-based system. I want to give you another one from our literature. This is another one from another very famous book called Bühnestil. Maybe some of you have heard it, by T.A. Harder, published in 1893. This is another one that uses German-based spelling, but also has some English-based spelling mixed in there. Da viele Partys, so the many parties. Da viele Partys. Ich hab mich nicht so weit verwandelt on da zwei große Partys. So now here we have, this is a great example to show you where we have a little bit of both things going on. For particularly with the FAR hyphen WONDLED word, verwandelt. Fa, using that F sound that you hear, uses the English F, where when we look at what this actually would look like in the Germanic spelling, it would be V-E-R, not F-A-R. Another example is the TSWA word, zwei, which is the word for the number 2. Again, zwei, A sound, as an English speaker, it makes sense to write an A there, but for a German speaker, that is not the right sound. If a German would read this, they say zwa, and it's not, it's zwei. So there's where you have to remember that there's in this spelling system, there's some English influence there too. Zwei große parties. So this is another example. And I know you're probably sitting here like, this is confusing, Doug. It can be. I know that, but have faith. Here's one example of the system that is what I would consider the most commonly used now, German-based system. It got the nickname the Buffington-Barba system because two very famous Pennsylvania Dutch writers and educators, Buffington and Barba, they were from the Lehigh Valley area in that part of southeastern PA. They used this system to do all of their writing. So the very famous Pennsylvania Deutsche Eck column in the Lehigh, in the Allentown Morning Call newspaper that ran for decades, that stuff was all written using this spelling system. Other famous authors of that era, like Lloyd Mull, he used this spelling system. So this is the spelling system that I use, and all of my books that I've done use this system because it is the most commonly used system. I would argue one of, if not the most commonly used spelling systems in Pennsylvania Dutch. This is from a blog post that I wrote just last year from Chulai and Moonet for Geburtsdauer. And just to show you what it looks like, Chulai and Moonet for Geburtsdauer. Es tut mir leid, als ich lang nix Neues geschrieben hab. Now this is German based. There's no real heavy English influence in. You'll see what heavy English influence looks like in the next example that I have for you. But this is showing you the system that is used quite a lot by people that are nowadays writing in Pennsylvania Dutch. And there are a lot of people out there doing that are using the Germanic-based system. Most likely, they're using the Buffington-Barba system. If you pick up one of Dick Beam's dictionaries or even Stein's dictionary, they are using this system of spelling. So that's why a lot of people know this system. If they are reading anything in the language, if you're taking a class like at the Berks History Center, they're using this system as well. Now, there is English-based. This is one I just saw right before I made this video. I pulled this as an example. So English-based is like what I mentioned earlier. You have people that speak Pennsylvania Dutch, but never learned any German or were never exposed to German spelling system stuff or anything written in German. So they will write Pennsylvania Dutch exactly how it sounds in their mind, knowing what written English looks like and sounds like. So this is from a Facebook page. I'm not Amish, but I can still speak Pennsylvania Dutch. This post was posted in February of 2024, written by a gentleman with the initials GM. He writes, Ich kenn just Brille verdanke, was der Welt Kummer ist dazu. Sis verschrecklich. Now, for me to read a lot of stuff, this is me personally speaking now. For me to read a lot of stuff that's written in using the English spelling system, I have to physically read it out loud to sometimes understand what people are writing. Because again, they might write one word 4 different ways, or 4 people will write the same word 4 different ways, I guess I should say. I read it out loud, knowing that I'm an English speaker as well, and I'm familiar with English spelling rules and sounds, and that's what I have to do. I have to. A lot of these, sometimes they're so difficult. If I just try to read them, I will not understand them. But if I read them out loud, and sometimes I have to take my time and think about, okay, what are they probably saying here? I know it sounds crazy, but this is a great example. And I'm going to show you this exact same example compared to a Germanic based system, spelling system based. And what this person is writing here is essentially saying, I could just cry when I think about what's happening or what the world is coming to. It's scary, essentially what the person wrote. So there is, you can see a little bit of the German coming in, but there's a lot of English, like we say was, that V sound. Well, in German, that's written in German-based spelling, it's written with a W, but here they're using the English V because that's what they're used to. Yeah. Dazu, Dahtso. That's a great example because that SOO in the German-based spelling would be ZU. But I would have to read this out loud. Dazu. Okay, that makes sense to me now. So, and I'll show you some examples of like this compared to the German here in a little bit. But this is just one example of an English-based spelling system in Pennsylvania Dutch. There are other examples, many examples out there. There is a Pennsylvania Dutch version of the Bible that is written using the English-based spelling system. And that is really tricky for me to read. It's another example of when I look at examples of that from that publication, I have to read them out loud for me to truly process what's being said. So I'd like to compare and contrast some of these. So I showed you 3 different versions of German-based spellings. These are I took the one from Harbar's Hoffa. It's on the left. Now that was from 1870, and I took it and I transposed it into the Buffington Barber system. So the modern style. So on the left is Heute ist exactly 20 Jahre, dass ich oben nas, na bin ich wieder ledig zurück. And then I took that and how I would write it using the Buffington Barber system. And this is what I would do. And if you looked up like Beam's dictionary or Stein's dictionary, these are how they would be spelled as well. You notice that exactly is spelled a little differently. And I put in parentheses the word grot because grot would be the non-English word for exactly. But you can notice there are some differences, but they're not drastic differences. But there are some differences. Another example I did for you guys is comparing the English version that I had, that English-based version from the guy from the Facebook page, to, excuse me, what I would do in the Buffington Barber system. So on the left is that ich kennt just Brille verdenke, was da Welt Kummer ist dazu, sis verschrecklich. And on the right-hand side is what that would be in the Buffington Barber system. Ich kennt just Brille verdenke, was die Welt Kummer ist dazu, sis verschrecklich. Of course, they sound exactly the same because it's the same language, but they're written 2 different ways. And you can see that when you compare these two, there are a lot of similarities, but there are also some differences. So I guess, here's a classic example of where this all started and what made me want to do this video. As I'm making this video, we just had Fastnacht, and all of the social media platforms were blasting. People were blasting pictures of their Fastnachts, and people were giving recipes on how they make their Fastnachts. And I made a post, and somebody attacked me right away and said, "I love this post, except you should learn how to spell the word Fastnacht correctly." And that's what got under my goat. I did not respond to that person, but it really made me think. This guy, whoever that was, really thought that his spelling was the correct spelling. I then scoured Facebook and a couple other websites to see all the different versions of the spelling of the word Fastnacht that I could find in a span of like 10 minutes. And here are just 6 different spellings that I saw. Fastnacht. They're all the same word. They're all the same word, but these are 6 different spellings. And I guess the question then is, which one's the right spelling? The answer is all of them. Really? Because there's no official spelling system. Now, I know which one I would use, the very first one, because that's the system that's the word that I'm used to writing. But none of them are wrong. And that's what I wanted to say to that guy, but I let it go because I don't like to, you know what that can lead to. So that's our big takeaway from all of this when we really think about it. There's more than one takeaway, but there's a couple I want to share. One, there's officially no right or wrong answer to any of this. That sounds like a cop-out answer, I know, but it is. There is no official body regulating and overseeing written Pennsylvania Dutch, spelling systems and all that stuff. So it's kind of like the Wild West. You use whichever, like I say, number two, use the system that you feel comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable using and reading the English-based spelling, go ahead. If you feel more comfortable using the German-based spelling, go ahead. But I would caution all of you, depending on what your plans are with the language, if you want to keep studying it or studying more or start reading more. Number three here, be aware that most of our literature is written in the German system. So if you're only familiar with the English system or an English style system, be aware that if you start, digging into Pennsylvania Dutch poetry or the plays or Pennsylvania Dutch literature, you're probably going to encounter the Germanic-based system. So just be aware of that. And another thing that really plays a role is that number four is that there are regional variations that play a part in how people spell a word. Because how I say a word in the northern Berks County region might be pronounced differently in Lancaster, or drastically, or maybe not drastically, but quite differently if we travel to Holmes County, Ohio, and encounter the Amish that are out there. Same word, but it might be pronounced differently. Therefore, people are going to write it differently or spell it differently. So we always have to be aware of that there are these regional differences. Now you might be sitting here and your head spinning, you're like, Doug, that's too much. What the heck? How am I supposed to ever master all this? You do what you can. You do what you can. And try not to let all these differences really, mess with you. Whatever system you're using to learn Pennsylvania Dutch in, whether it's English-based or the Germanic-based, just stick with it. Follow the quote unquote rules that you're given and keep moving ahead. Don't let these differences become roadblocks for you or stumbling blocks. Just know that there are these differences that exist. You might encounter them in your journey to learn Pennsylvania Dutch, but there's nothing here that is going to stop you or should stop you from learning more or for continuing on. So just keep that all in mind, dear friends. You're going to be fine. I just wanted to make you aware that these differences exist, and also to tell that guy that told me I was wrong that I'm not wrong. Neither's he. It's crazy, but that is the way that it is. So that's the best I can tell you. I know it's kind of like oh, come on, Doug, that's crazy. But that is the way that it is. When you have a spoken language that traditionally has not always been written, and there isn't a overarching group protecting or regulating the language, these things will happen. That's all there is to it. Sorry, guys. If you like what we do here and you'd like to get some of our merch, please visit our Zazzle shop. There are tons of Pennsylvania Dutch themed merch there. All of our merch is written using the German system of spelling because that's what I'm used to and that's what we create, Rachel and I. So check out the website zazzle.com/PA Dutch stuff to find tons of cool merchandise, all Pennsylvania Dutch themed. If you really like what we're doing here and you would like to financially support our endeavors, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Doug Maidenford. One coffee's $5. You can throw $5 my way, and all money raised through the Buy Me a Coffee campaign goes to the upkeep of the channel, whether it's new equipment, helping to pay bills. That's it. It's not buying me fancy shoes or a sports car. Trust me. I only use that money for PA Dutch stuff. Promises. And follow along. Of course, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, have you subscribed yet? Please do if you haven't. Have you liked it? Hit that notification bell so you get updates every time a new video is posted. But you can also follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now X, but I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. Just look for @PADutch101. And also feel free to visit the website, padutch101.com, where you can find my monthly blog and a lot of other really good resources to help you learn about the Pennsylvania Dutch culture, language, history, all that good stuff that we keep providing here through PA Dutch 101. It's been a pleasure being with all of you guys again. Until next time, keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch. Don't let these spelling issues scare you. And Schwetzdeutsch and Max gut.
Moxie, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And schlock that notification bell.